Okay. So I'm going to open the meeting of the Town Council's Community and Economic Development Committee. My name is Peter Columbotus. I'm chair. With me is Fred Chase, member, and we're still waiting on our third member, Bill Wood. He should be with us shortly. So the first item on the agenda is, let me get it up here. Is a resolution, an acknowledgement of the acceptance of catch basin cleaning at Maryland Landing land reclamation project. And this was sponsored by Councillor Rushton. Whereas on February 28th, 2017, Town Council unanimously approved issuance of a letter to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection consenting to the land reclamation project at approximately 8 acres of land owned by McDonald Industries, doing business as Maryland's Landing, that has been mined of its soils, gravel, and stone. Whereas the Department of Environmental Protection has issued an administrative consent order approving the land reclamation project. Whereas the Department of Environmental Protection oversees the reclamation process, including the testing of all fill. Whereas McDonald's Industry now proposes to accept municipal catch basin cleanings at Maryland's Landing and to accept catch basin cleanings from the town of Bridgewater free of charge. Whereas acceptance of catch basin cleaning is subject to sampling as required by Mass DEP, and such sampling results shall not exceed existing testing criteria for soil. Whereas the town manager recommends the issuance of municipal consent based upon the DEP policy governing land reclamation, and whereas land reclamation will bring the land contour back to its original form, be it resolved, the town council acknowledges and approves the acceptance of catch basin cleaning at Maryland's Landing, provided it is approved by Mass DEP and meets all applicable regulatory standards. So I assume this is something that the town council needs to kind of recognize in order for the DEP to recognize this as reclaimed land.
So really, I gather then that the all of the technical aspects of this with respect to the reclamation of the of land and the approval of the fill have all been apparently addressed by to the satisfaction of the town manager.
Right.
I don't know that we have any, at least certainly that I have any further information upon which to question or consider the content of the resolution.
Yeah, I guess we're essentially acting as a rubber stamp, right?
As I think, I personally see no reason for which it is not suitable to be recommended to the council. So that's the consideration we have before us this evening.
Right. A DEP, I guess, needs recognition, needs us to recognize that the catch basins are permitted. So this is kind of a DEP requirement in order for them to continue with the process.
As I believe.
Do I hear a motion to approve, to recommend to the passage to the council?
I would make a motion to recommend approval to the council.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion?
No, I think nothing further.
Yeah, nothing further. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous. And the second item on our agenda is resolution FY 22-003, sponsored by Councillor Wood, clear title to the town common. Whereas the Bridgewater Town Common is an iconic part of Bridgewater's history, and whereas the common has existed as a public space for generations, and whereas prior reviews of the ownership of the common show that the title may be clouded, and whereas any grant funded improvements to the common or the areas surrounding it will require certification that the Town has fee simple ownership of the common and the streets around it. Now, therefore, the town council assemble resolves that the town manager should arrange to conduct a review of the ownership of the common by a qualified party with all due haste to determine if further action is required to secure fee simple ownership in the town common. So this is
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
I'm not certain if Councilor Wood has joined us yet, but insofar as this is his proposal, and I do expect him momentarily, according to his text earlier this evening, may I suggest that we take out of order the following ordinance?
Great. That makes sense. Yeah, sure. Good idea.
Okay.
So we'll table that for now.
All right.
So on to our third proposed ordinance introduced by Councilor Souza. Ordinance FY 22-013, discontinuance of the abandoned portion of Lakeside Drive. Whereas a portion of Lakeside Drive has been abandoned and unused for decades, and whereas a portion is now part of the parking lot for the boat ramp, whereas a portion beyond that runs through the land owned by Claremont Lake Bridgewater, whereas the Bridgewater Town Council has the authority to discontinue the way pursuant to General Law, Chapter 81 and Section 2.2-2 of the Town Charter, ordered that the Town Council vote to abandon the portion of the way in accordance with the exhibit listed below. This way will become the property of the state, which owns the boat ramp at Claremont and Lakeside Bridgewater LLC. Will take ownership of the portion of the way abutting parcels 11 through 14 and parcels 29 through 39 shown on the Town of Bridgewater's Assessor's Map 83.
If I may,
Sure.
Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, we did, of course, this was referred to us from the council from our meeting about 2 weeks ago. And at that time, I know that we had quite a significant degree of public input relative to this matter. As I recall, and just to refresh your recollection, I believe that all of the input we received was negative with respect to the adoption of this particular proposal.
Right.
I think that some very serious concerns were raised by the residents, by the abutters, who are residents of Lakeside Drive, and they all sounded particularly sincere and significant to me.
Right.
Now, you know, if you'd care to discuss some of those in particular, I'd be happy to. I don't know if this is not a hearing per se, and I don't know if there is anyone here to accompany Councilor Souza as to support for this proposal, but I do think that we do need to give it ample consideration here tonight.
Yeah, this does seem like.
Can I ask what item are we on? Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilor Wood. We're actually discussing the proposed discontinuance of a portion of Lakeside Drive.
Okay.
And by the way, we have taken out of order your action this evening with respect to the town common, in as much as you weren't here just a few moments ago.
Sounds good. So can I ask a couple questions about this then, the Lakeside
Sure.
Drive? So I went down there to the parking lot, and there's clearly no physical road adjoining the parking lot. There's no evidence of any path for walking or anything else. If you look at Google Maps and you know, things like that, Google Maps works off of federal data. They don't have any illustration of any continuance of the road there. So it's definitely not in the federal database. And it doesn't appear to me to be physically evident. So I think it's probably similar to what's off Water Street here in Bridgewater and some of the other communities that have beachfront, which is, it was probably a subdivision envisioned for that spot. And if you look at some of the maps, you can actually see lines that look like maybe other house lots in the area. It just never showed up. So I don't see how we can even consider that this road exists at this point. There's just no physical evidence of it.
I understand your point, if I may, and I believe you're correct that it is not physically evident. It certainly didn't appear to be physically evident on some of the exhibits that were submitted previously to the full council. However, it legally exists. I'm looking at the.
In what form though? I mean, I haven't.
Well, for example,
it says Lakeside Drive extends that way.
Well, it's a town way. And if you look at the town assessor's website, I see that the only property owned by the town of Bridgewater on that address on Lakeside Drive is a parcel. And this, I assume, would be whatever portion of the frontage of that so-called abandoned portion of Lakeside Drive exists. And it's a parcel with an assessed value of $61,000. Now, there's apparently no town-owned improvement on that site. So therefore, this is the value of a parcel of land, apparently land abutting or having frontage on the presumed to be abandoned portion of Lakeside Drive that has an assessed value.
Does that property extend all the way to the water?
No, well, I can't say that. When I look at the maps, I see the parcels that are owned by and have been identified by Claremont, which appear to, in fact, have frontage on the lake. And I believe the portion of Lakeside Drive that we're talking about does not have direct access to the lake.
So did that portion that we're talking about that we can't physically see, does that continue at the path of Lakeside Drive before it takes a turn? Does it kind of go through the boat ramp?
Well, according to the exhibits that were furnished by the attorney for Claremont, it begins at a point on Pleasant Street and it proceeds, looking at the map, just northeasterly, past the building that is identified, I think, as number 23 Lakeside Drive, which is owned by Claremont. It was purchased a couple of years ago. It appears to be a single family home. It was previously under the ownership of a Gallagher family, I believe. It continues past that and up to at whatever point the land owned by the Commonwealth begins. And that apparently is this so-called unused or abandoned portion of Lakeside Drive. I think, as the residents of Lakeside Drive have pointed out, that land in question is actually actively used for partly as a parking lot, and I think for the parking of vehicles, and I think school buses. Someone had identified for me. And
parking lot, yes, but the road behind it, it's. So if you say the parking lot is part of Lakeside Drive, right? Is that 60, the parcel 60 that you're talking about on the assessor's guide?
On the assessor's site?
On the assessor's site, it's got parcel 60, which is owned by the town of Bridgewater.
That's right, but I don't think that assessor's site number corresponds to a plot number that's been identified on any of the exhibits provided to us. It doesn't appear to me to be, at all of the same sequence of numbers. I don't think it relates. My feeling is if the land is currently in public use without apparent restriction, to some degree, for the purpose of acquiring access to the boat ramp area, it's arguably a water-related use that would be protected under Chapter 91.
But I didn't think that, sorry, I didn't think that we're talking about the parking lot itself. It's the road that extends beyond the parking lot. It joins up to 104 that we're talking about, not the
South,
parking. We wouldn't give up the parking lot.
It heads southeast out of the parking lot essentially and meets up with Pleasant.
When I look at what was provided to us as Exhibit 1, it shows, if you have that, it shows in yellow all of the various plots that are owned by Claremont, including one that is set aside across the road on Lakeside Drive unto itself. And
it's not in the, can you share that on your screen? Because it's not in the packet.
Okay, I don't have it on my computer, so I can't share it on my screen. I'm sure this won't do. I think that my concern is that I think that the land, the property is, first of all, it does exist legally. That's the whole issue we're confronted with here, right? Should we declare it abandoned? We're the people who would do that. So it exists. It is in public use. And it's in public use in support of activities in connection with use of the lake, which are protected activities.
Again, we need to be clear though. I don't believe that we're talking about giving up rights to the parking lot. It should be the right beyond the edge of the parking lot. The parking lot is owned by the town of Bridgewater, and that's what I'm going to find here. But that road, if you look at the maps, it does extend from Lakeside Drive as it exists today across the parking lot, and then further into the land, and then hooks up back up to 104. But when you're in the parking lot and you go to the grass area, there's no evidence, if you're looking at the water to the left of the paved parking lot, there's no evidence of any roadway or whatnot. And so we can't be talking about giving up the parking lot. That'd just be insane. The parking lot is public access to the boat ramp. It's public parking, it's public access to the NIP. I think it's the space beyond the grassed in area that's behind the house that's on that lot that we should be talking about.
What I think is important to all of the abutters of the area. If you remember about 18 months ago, Claremont had sought a zoning change. This committee, along with the planning board, considered that, and that proposal was met with considerable public opposition. And it centered on the proposed construction of a restaurant effectively on the shore of the lake. And I think that Claremont had elected to forego that plan. I think that they, if I can use the word too, abandoned that plan in light of the opposition. And I think they were unable to secure an adequate setback from the lake in order to really proceed with that. And accordingly, what strikes me is that this just may very well be, and I'm only interpreting the information I have and trying to imagine what it is they intend to do, since they have not come forward to say as much. This appears to me to be another attempt to proceed with the restaurant proposal by other means.
I think it's, that may be true, but it's not on the docket here. It can't,
I understand.
It can't be under discussion because it's not part of what we're talking about.
I understand that. And the reason I bring it up though, is simply that we have no idea as to what the ultimate purpose of this change is. Obviously it would be beneficial to Claremont in some respect, for which reason they've brought this forward. And I would like to understand better the nature of their interest in that particular parcel. I think that it's important. I think it's something that the residents of the area are entitled to know, and they have a keen interest in.
So, Pete, if you've looked at the assessor's map 83, right?
I don't have it before me.
Yeah, I
So,
believe it's 83. It's the one that,
Is it one of the original exhibits?
yes.
right. So there's housing lots,
Right.
right? There's housing lots there. See the block of housing lots. I don't think those exist, right?
There's no development there. That's correct.
On paper, they could exist.
Right. What? Right. It's property owned by Claremont Company.
And then block 2028 and 39. Those, is that where the house is now? It must be, because
I believe it appears to me that lot 39 is the existing home that they purchased a few years ago.
I don't suppose we have anyone online here from Jennifer's office, right?
No, I don't believe we do.
There's a planning board meeting tonight. She's probably in attendance.
Um,
I'm looking at the assessor's map 83, and I'm trying to decide, I'm trying to locate where the town of Bridgewater has the parcel that's on the assessor's map.
What I believe it is, well, obviously we know this map shows Lakeside Drive as it once existed. And between the two yellow portions, which are our Claremont properties, Lakeside Drive did exist at a time between those parcels. Now, the town of Bridgewater, I assume, has title to a certain portion of that abutting land, unless the ownership is simply in the road itself. And perhaps it is. I mean, maybe that's the whole point.
I think that's the whole point.
That's the legal ownership that we're talking about. Okay.
it's a public way, yeah.
Because if they own 28, who owns 40?
Are we told? Parcel 40 is owned by the Commonwealth, we're told.
As is, right, 28.
Parcels 28 and 40 are owned by the Commonwealth. I think one question we need to ask ourselves is not the Commonwealth a party of interest in this matter?
Well, the section of Lakeshore Drive that extends between 28 and 40 is clearly in the middle of the parking lot. It was a parking lot built around the concept of Lakeside Drive.
Right. But yeah, to Fred makes it an important point. So we're abandoning our interest, but the state has to also abandon its interest for this to really happen. Right. And they're not here to do that, or they haven't been asked to do that, or as far as we know.
Well, if I understand the original proposal, it was such that the town was being asked to abandon our portion, and it would be in some form or manner divided between Claremont and the Commonwealth. So we're gifting to the Commonwealth a certain portion of the land, and we're gifting to Claremont the remaining portion. That's my
right. And you know, it's at the intersection of those two colors, yellow and green. Right. Right. Seems like a reasonable assumption. So I mean,
I don't have that map in front of me. Where do I find that map?
I think in the council material we received 2 weeks ago, it included all the exhibits. There are 5 exhibits, I think, that Frank's resolution had included.
Give me a second to find that. Is that from the 25th? No.
I think November 2nd. Am I? No.
No, prior to
No,
that.
obviously not November 2nd. Maybe the 25th, if that's the date.
So, Bill, I sent you a text just now, Bill, of that, a picture of that map with the highlighting. Did you get it?
Did you send an email or a text?
A text.
If you're not using the phone number that ends in 1, you're probably using my old work number.
Okay, I'll email it to your council address right now.
Okay.
That file.
While we're waiting for that, so just as a note, I've got an Edison easement crossing my front yard. I don't consider that Edison owns that piece of property.
No, it's an easement.
Right. It was intended years ago to run a power line down to Broad Street, but it was never developed. And I kind of view this road as, like some shore communities, they want to build the roads right out into the water. So they plan the road, it gets on the map, it gets defined, but it never gets executed. And I think that in this case, this portion of Lakeside Drive is probably that it actually sits on another parcel as an overlay because it was intended to be a road, but it was never developed as a road. It didn't exist as a road.
Well, my interpretation of the facts that were presented to us is that the road did exist at a time, and at some point, part of the disappearance of it is accounted for by the fact that the parking lot was paved, and therefore the road is not visible as a road.
Pete, I got your email. Thank you. So are we, when you say the yellow area, is it just the yellow area that is being talked about now?
Well, the yellow area,
Wood-coated.
these are the parcels owned by the Claremont Company.
Right.
That's according to their own exhibit.
Right, but they don't own 28 and 40, right? So that's where the parking lot is today. And so
That's correct. That's correct.
If you take that line and bisect Lakeside Drive between the two parcels, then we're only really talking about the space of Lakeside Drive between the yellow lines.
I think so.
No, we're talking about we're
The whole thing, but Claremont, right? But if we abandon the section of Lakeside Drive from the V, and we're not harming the town of Bridgewater, we're not harming the parking lot, we're not taking anything away from that. The only thing that gets affected is at the western side of that is the space between the owned yellow spaces.
right, because we've essentially abandoned the green portion already to the state, and they're using it, right?
It's under state ownership. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding is that the subject area that we're talking about as a proposed abandonment is currently used by persons accessing the pond, whether it's in connection with parking or otherwise. And that's my understanding as comments were made to us at the council.
If you go down to the parking lot, there is no, as I said, it's brush and trees. There is no path. There is no access unless you want briars and ticks.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Google Maps, you can see.
I was down there last week to take a look at it in preparation of the meeting. You know, if there was a used path and down at the, you know, where my parents have the summer house, there is a path known as Channel Road. It isn't a road, but as long as people continue to use it to traverse from one road to the other, it stays open as a public way. Right? There's no evidence of anyone using a walking path that used to be Lakeside Drive between parcels 39 you know, the 39 and whatever to the left of the parking lot that I can see.
Right, but does one have to use one's asset in order to retain title to it? I mean,
Well, that's one of the best ways. it's continuous use over a period of time.
right.
Notorious use. Let me ask you this. I'm not sure if you can tell me the answer to this, and I don't know this. But on Pleasant Street, on Exhibit 1, there appears to be an entry, a curb cut or otherwise, to Lakeside Drive. But if I understood correctly, I think by comments we received, that is actually not accessible by a motor vehicle at that point. Am I correct? I see Councilor Souza is nodding his head. Mr. Chairman, could I ask that question a little directly of Councilor Souza?
Sure, yeah, sure, feel free.
Frank?
Yes, at that end that you're just describing, there is actually a gate that prohibits any vehicles to come into that area.
But, okay, thank you. And let me ask you this. Were there not a gate there? Would it be possible for vehicles to transgress that and head northeasterly up Lakeside Drive?
I didn't walk the whole thing, but there are some areas that are covered with all brush and everything. You know, it's abandoned. It hasn't been used in who knows how long. You know, when they changed the road is what happened. They instead of going out and up, they just changed the road, left that strip open and put the gate up to prohibit people from going in, and whatever Mother Nature did to it and growth and stuff, it's there.
So it's overgrown.
So clearly not a town accepted road. So the town doesn't own the road at this point.
Well, we wouldn't be here if the town did not own the road. The whole point is we're being asked to relinquish our ownership by virtue of this abandonment. So the town owns something.
Well, okay, but if you look at a non-accepted road, it would still appear on the map, but the town does not own those roads.
Private ways, of course, you're right.
Right.
But
The road
this
we
is a
just
public-
approved up the street here for me as a good example. You know, that development had been in place for I don't know how long, 15, 20 years. We finally accepted the road. The road was there. It's on the maps. It's on a Google map. It's clearly, you know, but it wasn't owned by the, you know, ownership of maintenance and everything else wasn't the town's responsibility. I have one other question, Fred, for you, and I don't know because we don't have Jason here. Northeastern, and I went Northeastern as a grad student. My daughter was there undergrad, and between the two times, which was a while, Northeastern expanded their campus. And when they expanded their campus, they took over a road that was clearly owned by Boston, and it was a used road. They closed it off. They paid the city of Boston, I think it was something like $2 million for that road. So, you know, for I guess we'd have to have Jason here, but if we were to say that the town takes us off the map, as it were. Could we ask for compensation from the landowner that would benefit from that? In the case of northeastern Boston, similar example.
I think that makes sense. And one could even say we're negligent in not trying to secure revenue. You know, we're not serving the public purse well by just giving away assets, right?
Well, I'm generally not in favor of donating town assets, particularly to a business enterprise. But I mean, I think that's a valid point. Should this not be property that we would consider to be such as the old highway barn, right? We declared it surplus property, at which point we could dispose of it, or we could, if a buyer were to appear, we could sell it. So, you know, one consideration is, as I think the chairman has pointed out, that, you know, maybe it's more appropriate for the town actually to be seeking compensation for this. It still leaves open, frankly, in my mind, a good many questions about the suitability of doing anything with that property. You know, particularly in light of the access to the lake and the activities that are related to that.
Yeah, I mean that it doesn't seem like sound practice to just give away without at least considering compensation.
I mean, I will admit, I don't think that we tonight, just by virtue of our conversation, that we have necessarily all the facts that would help us to make this determination.
Yeah,
maybe more information can be forthcoming, but
I was gonna say the same thing. I don't think we can take a vote on this tonight. We do need to kind of clarify what we need to have answered before we can really dig into it more fully.
Do we still have access to the GIS map? I missed that being online.
You know, I haven't before.
The problem I'm encountering here is I'm looking at I'm doing the search on the assessor's database, and I use broad search for Lakeside Drive. It comes up with a lot of things, and then I look at like Town of Bridgewater or Commonwealth as owners, but I can't picture. There's no picture on the assessor's map of where it is now. And it doesn't, I don't see anything on the card. Oh, there it is. Okay, 69-1. Okay, 1 second. 2. Looks like it's the other end of the street, maybe.
are you able to match that with a map?
Oh. Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so Claremont owns 23 Lakeside Drive. Where's the map on that? I'm just trying to make heads or tails out of the details here. Okay, here we go. So on the assessor's page, on the card, you look up 23 Lakeside Drive, which is owned by the Claremont Corporation or Claremont Lakeside Bridgewater. So then under the word town, there's a parcel ID, which has, I believe it's map -39, and then you can go over to that. And so that shows the yellow block that's closest to Pleasant Street. So now what we need to do is see if we can identify who owns.
Okay, so the yellow block
too.
closest to Pleasant Street is, that's number 23.
Yeah, that's the one with only, that's actually the only one with actual frontage on Pleasant.
Right, so this is, right, so that triangular block is marked as 39. This is parcel 39 off of map 83.
Right.
Now in the zoning section, and I don't know what this exactly means, and maybe Peter, you can tell me better. So under the zoning, it says BLC-1, and then it says lakefront.
I don't know what that indication means. And you're finding that, I'm sorry, where?
So on the assessor's card again.
For property?
23 Lakeside, which is that yellow triangle.
Okay. And the card.
Right, so third
Right.
column down, second row in, it says zoning.
I see what you're saying. It reads BLC-1 lakefront. I couldn't tell you what that indication identifies.
Is the land, oh, that's the assessment. Which land is over this?
Bill, do you suppose that a best route forward at this point might be to consider getting specific questions responded to from Jennifer or someone in that department?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And then yeah, I think it would enhance our understanding of exactly what's being asked.
Yeah, I think that's a prudent course. We don't want to go through this, half-armed with the facts. So let's generate some of those questions. One question was the issue of compensation, if the town shouldn't seek compensation for abandonment of its rights. What other specific questions do we have?
We want to make sure that if we abandon the section that crosses the parking lot, that we're not affecting any ownership or rights to the parking lot itself.
Okay, right, if we abandon, right. Right. Don't lose access up here. Okay.
So I guess we could consider just tabling the matter or for a future meeting,
Yeah.
or
Oh, we'll have to do that. Yeah, but I think Pete's on the right course here. Just collect, what we're
What
interested in knowing.
What else? Yeah, what else do we need to know?
I'd like to
Well-
know, does that 23 Pleasant, which is map 83, parcel 39, does that extend all the way to the lake? Because it says lakefront. Or are there additional parcels?
Well, there's 14, right? Isn't that parcel 14 that abuts the lake? It's hard to read these numbers.
It appears to me that all those parcels are, fully delineated and
Right.
they have lakefront access. Some of them do.
Right, but so here's the disagreement in the details we're looking at is if that's in fact Lakeside Drive and those parcels are on Lakeside Drive, why don't I see a specific listing for them with, map and parcel guide? I don't know what the relationship are of those additional parcels behind these parcel 39. I assume Claremont owns it because it's yellow in yellow, but we didn't see it address if there's one, if it's separate from the parcel out front.
It seems like on the northeasterly half, those parcels go straight through from Lakeside Drive to the shore. And the ones on the southwesterly portion are bisected and some
That's
have
correct.
lakefront, right? That's how I'm reading that.
That's what
Then there's
I,
that one long strip the third that goes all the way from Lakeside to the lake itself.
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, we can barely read these numbers. It's kind of difficult to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we just need, so how might we articulate that? So we want to know.
I think that, one issue too is just to what extent any of the road, so-called, in question is actually available and actively in use by the public for any purpose. Because
Right.
obviously, were we to proceed with this ordinance, it would
Extinguish that use.
That's
Right.
correct.
Right.
So I think we could use some guidance on that point too.
Right, we don't want to abandon something has utility to us. Okay,
Right, so I just discovered this. On the assessor's search guide, if you just plug in map 83, wait a minute, and if I remove Lakeside, and search on that, there we go. All right, so the green areas that were marked on the map, parcels 28 and 40, right? And those are, as you said, Pete, I think you said earlier, they're owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That is correct.
So that's where our parking lot is, right? Because it's when you come straight off the Pleasant Street down, you're basically at the bottom and the ramps to the right of the green area and the parking lots to the left of that. So, any abandonment across that is simply back to the, oh, so here's the other question, right? So if there's a distinct parcel 40 and a distinct parcel 28, and there's no assessment of the space between them on that parking lot. Now, there would be no assessment to come with anyway, but if we abandon, forget the Claremont piece for a second, let's just imagine the parking lot, right? So if we abandon Lakeside Drive across the parking lot, does that join up with parcel 40 or 28
I would imagine it would constitute its own parcel and then, which could then be merged with either or, I presume.
Okay,
I think they would need to be its own entity.
okay.
I don't know how to speculate.
Right, so there again, so you have to separate that Lakeside Drive into a green Lakeside Drive and a yellow Lakeside Drive to have a really, good conversation about this, because the green, if it were to become its own parcel, belongs with the parking lot. And if we abandoned it to the yellow side, it could become another parcel, but it's in between the yellow side, not the green.
Well, I think this is consistent with the Claremont proposal, because they do refer to the fact that a portion of it would revert, I'll say, to Claremont, and the remainder would revert to the Commonwealth. And I think it's just consistent with those delineations you're speaking of, the
Right.
yellow and green areas.
So in the list of questions though, Pete, it'd be good to get, some legal advice on this. Because I don't think that, is the abandonment, does it start that process? What's the next step? Does Jason come in and say, well, you've abandoned it now, it becomes, a parcel for the Commonwealth and a parcel for Claremont? Or is this, how does that process work? I'd like to
Right.
know that.
Got it. Yeah, okay, is that it for now? We
Yeah,
could always, if,
it's easy to overwhelm people with questions, right?
yeah, I was just
I think
gonna
it's
say,
important that it's important that we understand this, because we
Yeah.
don't want to give up rights to the parking lot, clearly.
yeah, it's,
And I get what everybody's concern is, that somewhere down the road, Claremont might want to use that other parcel for something other than a house, right? I get that concern, but I think we need to look at, the facts as they are, that it's not a path, it's not a walking trail, it's not a road. We have to protect the existence of the parking lot, and then go and see what the next step is. And I do think that, if it does become its own parcel, if that's the answer, then that parcel has value. And if it has value and we abandon it, we could sell it to,
Right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an important question. We shouldn't,
Yeah.
we're in no position to giving away assets.
Right.
Okay, so we're all set for now?
All right, so I'll make it, because we got to do this formally up. So I'll make a motion to, postpone this until our next meeting.
Okay,
I would second that.
okay, to table until next meeting.
No, postpone, table, it's a very different meeting.
Okay. Postpone. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
No. Aye.
Aye.
You gotta do a roll.
Bill?
Yes,
Fred?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay.
I love these rules, but no. Okay, so what are we talking
Agenda.
back to?
Okay, so the next item. I'm looking at two different agendas. Jeez.
Did you guys already handle the resolution, the acknowledgements?
Yeah. Okay, so the next item is one for
Town
which I will
common.
need to recuse myself. It's eminent domain order of taking for Summer Street property. Given that my primary residence is within 100 feet of that, I need to recuse myself. So I guess I'll leave the, perhaps we should take out of order the resolution to the
Yeah,
comment before
yeah, let's take
let's
that
do
as
that.
the
And
clear title.
then I
Yeah.
can leave the meeting. You guys can decide about Summer Street.
All right.
Okay.
But if you leave the meeting, it won't shut down, right?
No, Fred can
Who-
chair it, or either of you can chair it.
Josh can take you out of the meeting, I
Oh,
think.
Josh is here. Okay, okay, thanks.
Um,
Okay, so are we going to take up the resolution?
Yeah, we read it earlier. So Bill, maybe you could just tell us
Sure, sure.
motivation and all.
Yep. So for a long time, longer than the council, we've talked about the common and changes that are needed on the common. And my father, I don't know if you, well, my father, he's on the, I think the Historic Commission, does a ton of, it started out kind of as a joke, but he was researching my grandparents' house, which is across from the Academy building, and does deed research back into the 1700s to find things. And his research expanded. And one of the projects he took on was he called it who owns the common, and he's actually got flip charts with years of deeds and everything else. And it's very difficult to get clear title on the common for what we think of Bridgewater owning. Bridgewater may not actually own all of it. So there's the Walsh houses, and there was Washburns and all sorts of ownerships property in the area. So what this resolution is asking is for the town manager to he'll have the attorney dig back and find clear ownership in titles that belong to Bridgewater. Clear ownership is that you have clean title from A to Z, and that there's clear transition from one owner to the next. And sometimes parcels get broken up, sometimes they get consolidated, but you have to bring all that evidence together to show clear title when you do a real estate transaction. Most homes, when you're buying or selling a home, require a 50-year clear title. And I'll tell you, in Bridgewater, sometimes that's difficult because there's farms that existed long before the housing tracts, and the ownership gets murky. So in this case, this is simply to make sure that the town actually has ownership of the entire common, roadway and green area. And if not, then our next step would be to take it from eminent domain. Now, it's likely that the person whose name was on the title didn't pass it correctly or whatnot, and it may just be like a section maybe over by the gas station, for example, or somewhere in the middle that doesn't have clear title. So the resolution simply asks the town manager to have someone research and get clear title. Where it's not clear title, then we should be able to take clear action through eminent domain to get clear title. The net result is we want to own the common and clear for the town of Bridgewater and with the roadways. That's the only way that we could fairly execute any changes, whether it's roadway changes, directional changes. You've seen the options. I don't want to go into the options here. But in order to execute any of those with the down by the Sovereign Bank with a triangle or the southern end by the Academy building, we want to make sure that everything's clean before we start executing it. That's the emphasis behind it. I've seen my father's presentation a couple times, and I thought it would be fair that since I know based on his research that it's not really clear, then it's fair to say we should probably take the time and clean it up.
Makes sense to me. Yeah. Imagine we really haven't spent money on the common, but or gotten grants, but I could imagine that's a possibility. So seems worthwhile. Okay, do I have a motion? Motion to
I would
recommend.
make a motion to approve the resolution and urge adoption by the council.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
I talked long enough.
Okay, Bill, then, what is your vote?
Yes, yes.
Fred?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay. So 3-0, recommend passage by the full council. Okay, so we've done the discontinuance of land. Okay, so I am going to leave the meeting. Fred, why don't you take over as chair? And fax me any notes you send me any minutes you can keep just to have the
I can
vote
put you in the
transcribers.
waiting room and bring you back if you'd like, Counselor.
Okay.
All right, good. Thank you, Chairman. So we have order FY 22-019, eminent domain order for taking of Summer Street property. Whereas the town of Bridgewater wishes to create additional downtown parkland and passive recreational space for the people of Bridgewater for the public purpose of improving the living experience of residents of Bridgewater who live in the downtown area and providing outdoor passive recreational opportunities for residents and visitors alike, ordered that by the town council for the town of Bridgewater as follows. One, that the town of Bridgewater, by right of eminent domain, pursuant to the applicable provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 79 and Chapter 121B, and also Chapter 610 of the Acts of 1967, and of any and every power granted or implied hereby, takes for itself in fee simple for the purposes set forth or referred to the property located in the town of Bridgewater, presently known as 46 Summer Street, more particularly described as Parcel 1, in a plan recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds at Plan Book 14, page 625, and in a deed recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds at Book 3351, page 458, together with any and all easements and rights of and privileges as specifically referred to, if any, but not limited thereto, and all claims, rights, and interests of any kind or nature therein, whether vested or otherwise, including the trees, buildings, structures, bridges, overhead bridges standing upon or affixed thereto, including air rights and the fee in, if any, in all streets and passageways in said area, and rights, if any, either contiguous or nearly contiguous and adjacent or nearly adjacent to the properties taken hereby. Number two, it is further ordered that in accordance with the provisions of the general laws, awards are made by the town of Bridgewater for damages, if any, sustained by the owner or owners and all other persons, including mortgagees of record, having any and all interest in each parcel. Number three, it is further ordered that a copy of this order of taking and related plans, if any, be recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and the land registration section thereof, if applicable, in compliance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 79. 4, the parcel known as 46 Summer Street, Bridgewater, Mass. 02324, being taken is specified as Parcel 1 in a plan recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds at Plan Book 14, page 625. That is the full text of the order. The explanation that appends this order reads very simply, explanation: to take by eminent domain a certain parcel of land in the town of Bridgewater for municipal purposes, namely to create parkland and open space for the benefit of all Bridgewater citizens. To the extent that anyone is unfamiliar with the location that I've identified in this order, this is more commonly known as the former mobile gas station just on Summer Street, right adjoining the very small park that is, if I recall, maintained by the Bridgewater Improvement Association. Bill, have I left anything out as far as additional commentary on that?
Right, so it's it's commonly known as the mobile station.
The mobile station. That's
Right.
correct.
It has been pretty much abandoned for years now. I wrote some information, and I hope at some point somebody in the due diligence piece does take a look at this. So Frank Dubard, I think I've mispronounced his last name. Dubrow, Dembro. That's it. Thank you. It was running the station when Mobile decided to close it, and he told me that the tanks had been taken out, and the ground had been tested, and I've heard elsewhere that there's been an ongoing cleansing of the area as well as testing, and so I would hope as part of the due diligence of any property taking and everything that it does show that there's no hazard there, because I think that'd be detrimental to the deal. But I haven't seen anything from building inspector or anything to say that it has or not. Maybe it's premature to even talk about that. I don't know.
Well, it's a legitimate concern, and if I recall correctly, as you know, the council has had discussions about that particular site for some recent years. And my recollection is that the town manager had noted that the soils had been tested for leaky tanks in the past. And I again, just my recollection is that the town was satisfied to the extent that there was no apparent release of oil into the soils. I certainly share your concern, and I wouldn't want us to have taken on any liability needlessly by virtue of this taking. But I think based upon the information that we have, in terms of providing a remedy to that area, to that neighborhood, this has been a blight for quite some time. It's been abandoned for, I think you've referenced it, but I'm not sure how many years, probably 10 years or more. So I certainly feel favorably toward adoption of the order. And my understanding is that others in the town have given us some confidence that there's not an environmental concern at this point. That's all I can offer.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the proposal as well. To support Flora T. Little Park there, it's pretty much landlocked. There is no parking. There is no easy access unless you're on foot. And so, expanding the park and making it a little more usable would be a great thing. Is there anything I want to discuss on the order? Otherwise, I'll make a motion to recommend passage to the council.
I think there's nothing further for us to consider necessarily here tonight. So
Okay.
If you'd like to make a motion.
I will make a motion to recommend to the council.
Okay, and I would second that. And I'll poll the members who are here. Bill, your vote, please.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm also in favor, so it is unanimous. So we will refer this to the council for their approval.
Yeah. So Josh, there's no public comment on this agenda.
I see that there's not, but I think that's rather unusual.
Yeah.
I think that my recommendation would be to, notwithstanding the absence of a comment noted on the agenda, to invite comment from those who have been patient enough to bear with us tonight. I believe Peter is going to rejoin us, is he not?
Yeah, I can bring him back.
Hi, Pete.
Hey,
I
We noticed there wasn't a public comment on the agenda, but we thought it'd be a good idea to
Oh, yeah.
the folks that are here to
Yeah, it
comment.
was an oversight. I'm sorry.
All right. We're at that time.
Okay, so.
Ask for
are there any
comments.
citizens who would care to make a comment or ask a question which we might and might not be able to respond to? Can't really see anybody.
I see hands raised.
Yeah. Looks like Janet's iPad.
Okay, Janet's iPad. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, Janet Hanson, Pleasant Street, Bridgewater. Thank you very much for allowing comments. Just a couple of things. I can comment about everything that you talked tonight, right? Not just one particular thing.
Right.
Okay. Just on the last thing you were talking about on the Summer Street, I would just, and you did touch on the hazardous, I think it should be that you really make sure that there isn't any hazardous material, not just based on what you've known so far, before the town takes it over. As Mr. Chase said, we don't want any liability. So that should be a consideration before any decisions. And on the Lakeside situation, Lakeside Drive situation, I'm just wondering why this is being proposed to begin with. Why, what's the intention? It's been left alone all these years with no problem. So why is it a situation now? And I agree that I personally don't think it should be dissolved or considered abandoned and divided up. And but if it does go through Claremont or whoever, it should be that whoever takes that portion shouldn't be made to pay for it. You can't just give it away. But I do have concerns, and I don't live on the lake, and I'm concerned about that proposal. So I just wanted to, there's a lot of questions on that as the committee have gone through, and it really needs to be clarified a lot better than the way it is. But other people have said it more eloquently than me about that area, but I would like to know why it's being proposed to begin with. So
Right.
Those are my comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if I don't see. Oh, Pat Neary. Pat?
Hello, Pat Neary, Lakeside Drive. I, of course, wanted to comment on the Lakeside Drive situation. I'm not sure why we were searching for information on this subject tonight, because when Mr. Souza proposed it, there were plenty of diagrams and information with the agenda, which I kept referring to here tonight. So that would have been helpful, I guess, if you'd gone back to the original package. Now, I'm not sure everyone is clear on the fact that at one time that was Lakeside Drive, and when they put in Route 24 back in 1951, this little piece of property was left over and has been used by our community and other recreational people in surrounding towns in summer and winter. And our DPW takes care of it. They cut the grass, they plow the parking lot. So in no way has this been abandoned or relinquished. So I think you should just leave it the way it is. And furthermore, Commonwealth of Mass isn't going to pay us any money if we abandon this piece of property. That would just be something that probably wouldn't happen in my lifetime.
Mhm.
So those are my comments, and I thank you.
Well, thank you, Pat. I don't see any more hands.
Oh, hi, Melissa Raymondetta, 317 Lakeside
Oh,
Drive,
okay.
Bridgewater. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my comments. First, I do ask that you oppose the petition by Claremont. you know, one of the things I think that really needs to be emphasized here is context. You know, I'm hearing a lot about the nitty gritty details of this, but I didn't hear a lot, you know, with the exception of some comments from one of the counselors, I haven't heard a lot about context. And, you know, we have neighborhoods here that are going to be impacted by this decision and any future decisions related to this property. Yeah, the petition itself was quite vague. The petitioner did not provide any information as to what the purpose of this was. And I think that these are things that are important and need to be known. We've had residents attending, I think this is the 4th meeting that has been with regard to this property. It's a residential property owned by a real estate investment development and asset management firm. This is not a homeowner that we're talking about. So let's please don't forget the context of this. And also the precedent. You know, as a resident, I'm very concerned not only about our neighborhood, but the other neighborhoods that reside along Route 104 and Pleasant Street that border these industrial and business districts. This is a concerning development, and I really think that the town has a responsibility to protect its neighborhoods. Thank you for my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, hello, Bernice
Yes.
Morrissey.
Go ahead, Bernice.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate the discussion that was held tonight, but gee, there's a lot left out. I really appreciate the fact that there is no transparency here and you're taking the time to investigate it further. I'm confused. I really like the list of questions that you have of what is being asked. There's, you know, we hear little bits and pieces, but Claremont hasn't put a proposal for what's going to happen, what their plan is, what's the end game. But from everything I know about the lake, from 30 years living here, advocating, protecting myself and my neighbors, in the history that I have been entrusted with of how did it become ACEC? Because it was known in the 80s and 90s that this is worth protecting. ACEC being the area of critical concern.
Right.
All the houses we are talking about are under that area of critical concern. So if, and we don't know, if the idea is to put cars there for parking for a restaurant, I mean, we don't know what the thing is. All of that is inappropriate use for that property. Those parcels across along the lake. They were at one time purchased by the Commonwealth of Mass, and all the land around the Hockomock Swamp was purchased with a grant with taxpayer funds back in the 60s. And it was for conservation and preservation. And then later came the designation area of critical concern to protect the habitats, the ecological impacts for the wildlife that's there. This happened long before my residency here. And I appreciate that work was done. And I really feel it needs to be all factored in. And also the final point is the flood control. So when we talk about benefits to the town, my goodness, at this very week when we're discussing climate change and around the world, the Hockomock Swamp has been described as an engineering marvel that didn't cost a dime to construct because it serves 9-10 surrounding communities in absorbing like as a flood control. It just is a natural ability to do that. So how this land that is so, it's waterfront, it's all waterfront along 104, became even, and it's coded for public access. We know that. And that's what it was purchased for. So how it became coded for development, there are two parcels that changed hands in the past, one in 2014 from Commonwealth of Mass to Claremont property. And along with that, it was the use went from protection, public access, fish follow and navigate, to now to development? Like, how does that even happen? So those are my
Right.
questions. And I'm going to leave it at that because I know you guys have been really great at trying to figure it all out with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll unmute.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
second. Discussion, no discussion. Fred, your vote?
Yes.
Bill?
yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, so the meeting is closed at 8:22 p.m. Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.